I cried for most of yesterday because I got so used to being with them all the time. It was the weirdest thing. I was excited about it, but then I was like, God, I miss them so much.
Yeah. The oldest one has horse camp, her first camp next week, and I'm apprehensive, but I mean it's due. She needs to get out and socialize. Yeah. It's overdue. So I'm excited for it, and this is her favorite camp. She gets to be with horses and outdoors, and so
That's
she's
cool.
She's gonna love it.
That's cool. You look good. You look really healthy. Wow.
Yeah, thanks. I've been trying. We've got a Peloton in there that we've just been grinding it out, trying to. Cool. Yeah, no gym, no nothing. So.
Yep. Good. Well, good seeing you. I'm gonna actually hit the restroom quickly before we start.
Sounds great. I'll mute myself, and good luck. Good luck for this.
Thank you so much. All right, let's see.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well, all things considered.
Yeah. I mean, what a week, huh?
Oof, I know, it's so much going on.
Yeah. Cool. Let's see who's Tom. How are you? Anna, Maribeth, hi. Kathy, hi. How are you?
Steve, make sure you're looking at the chat.
How many RSVPs? There are like 60.
Nice. That's a good number.
It's, yeah, cool. Hi, Tiana. How are you? It's a lot. It's funny. You get a lot going on. Hi, Bob. With the chat and welcome. We're going to give everyone about 5 minutes to get here. We're expecting about 60. We got about, I don't know, 12 people. So we'll get started in a little bit. Thank you all for coming. Bob, are you in the backyard? Oh, no, that's a screen. Wow, that's really cool.
It's very realistic. Sometimes you see them and they're not realistic at all. This is quite nice, good. Bob.
That's my brother.
Nice. Good to have support.
There you are. There's a lot. Just my head's a little cut off here. Huh? Hi, Jeff. Hi, Ann. Oh my God, Ann, how are you? Oh, it's so great. Jill, how are you? Wow, it's so great to see you guys. Kelly, oh my God, how are you? Wow. So incredible. We're going to give it a couple minutes, start at about 12:05, and it shouldn't take the full hour unless you guys are chatty today. I think we're all scheduled for an hour, but we're trying to get it done in 45 minutes, but we're open to whatever comes up. So, hi, May. Oh my God. Sean, oh my God. Oh my God. Wow. It's so nice to see you. Wow. Thank you so much. Are we second or third cousins? Second. Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. My sister just joined. Hi, Julie. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes and then we'll get started. No. Wow, this is great. This is so exciting. I think we'll go ahead and get started. It's about 5 after. I think we have quorum, right? We good to go? It's so quiet. Rudy, can you unmute yourself for a minute? And Jen? Yeah, let's get started. Yelena, hi Iris, how are you? Sabrina, oh my God, thank you so much. Ruth, David, so nice to see you guys here. Take a deep breath. Let's get going. Great. So first of all, I'm so incredibly grateful to have you all here today. Thank you so much for coming. I feel honored and humbled to be here. Before we get started, I want to thank my friend Rudy Espinosa, who is actually the moderator today, and he helped me do a lot of things to get prepared for today. So thank you so much, Rudy. I appreciate it. I especially want to thank my publisher, Jenn T. Grace, her director of operations, Nikki Garcia, and Karen Ang, the editor, for helping me to tell my story in my voice. I've got a lot of thank yous, so it's going to be a couple minutes here. There are a lot of people that helped me get to today. I want to thank Loravik for the unconditional support to dig into our lives and share our story with the public. Thank you. To Caitlin and Matthew for pushing me every day to be better as a father and a human being. Thank you. To Matthew and Caitlin's birth parents for the greatest gifts in the universe, your sacrifice for our benefit, and for trusting us to be their parents. Thank you. To my mom and dad for helping me to become the man and father I am today. Thank you. To my mom, who's here on the meeting, for helping me through the writing process. She's been very much there as I've been writing on a daily basis. I want to thank my siblings Julie, Bob, and Bill, I'm grateful for our meaningful relationships and your love and support of our family. Thank you. To my best friends, Jill Roizen and Jeff McKinney, you provide me with the foundation for so many things in my life. Thank you. And they are both here today. To Jennifer Brown, you emboldened me to share my story. Thank you. To my everyman brothers, some that are here on the call today, thank you. To my business coach, Chris Wilson, thank you. To fellow authors who provided me with guidance and were advisors to me throughout the process, Bruce Japson, Denise Williams, Marion McGovern, Helio Fred Garcia, and Walto Detz, thank you. And then there's a whole host of community, and hopefully I'll remember everyone here, but if I don't, I apologize. To a community of supportive mentors, sponsors, advisors, readers, and friends who've helped me fulfill my dream of becoming an author, thank you. Atosa Fullerton, Adam Tiarine, David and Janet Van Etten, Carol McDonough, may she rest in peace, Ruth Abdomasi, Tiffany Hester, Michelle Disselhorst, Claire Chesney, Deb Kopelman, Tom Farnsworth, Cara Pellegrini, Jamie Reynolds, Tim Rodolfi, and Tom Henley. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I never ever thought I could achieve this, and it was through the love, support, and kindness of all of you that I'm here today. I wanna also, Rudy, I think, should we go and show the agenda? I think I forgot to, the agenda slide. So we are recording today, so I can use this recording for my website. The welcome we just did and the thank yous. I'm gonna do a message of solidarity, and then we're gonna hear from the publisher, Jenn T. Grace. I'm gonna read a short portion of the book, and then we're gonna open up for Q&A, and then we'll close, okay? How does that sound? Great. So I wanted to start off with a message of solidarity. First of all, as a white, gay, cisgender man, I have achieved my dreams of becoming a dad on the shoulders of many activists and civil rights leaders who fought for equality for years. I offer up my journey as part of the LGBTQ movement for full equality. And we in the LGBTQ movement are indebted to the African-American community, as well as communities of colors that have worked so hard for equality. The March on Washington in 1963, it was a critical juncture in creating the framework in the attainment of civil rights for Black, Brown, and LGBTQ people. It was organized by Bayard Rustin, a gay Black man. This march helped pass the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And yesterday, we all saw the Supreme Court ruling that it is illegal to fire someone based on sexual orientation and gender identity. And I just want to say that the struggle for equality is a struggle that we walk with our African-American brothers and sisters, communities of color, to fight for equality for all. And as part of that work, I am donating a portion of the proceeds from Determined to be Dad to the Center for Black Equity, which is an organization that works for equity for Black LGBTQ people. And I ask all of you who are here on Zoom with me today to help end racism and step into the uncomfortable conversations that are required in order to get people to realize their privilege that they have in this world, and to help understand that not everyone has privilege. And we each have a role to play, and we need to use our voices in order to support the Black Lives Matter movement and all communities of color that are mistreated in this country. And at this point, I'm gonna introduce the publisher. Jenn T. Grace is a nationally recognized business strategist, speaker, and author. Jenn believes social change happens first and the workplace before spilling over into mainstream society. And we've seen that in many movements, the LGBTQ movement. We're now starting to see it where corporate America is stepping out and putting out very bold statements about racism. And there's a lot of work being done in corporations. So Jenn's belief is very much ahead of the time, and so grateful for that. She has been featured in Forbes, the Huffington Post, the Wall Street Journal, and CNBC. She's passionate about helping people share their stories of adversity, and she is the founder of Publisher Purpose Press. She has helped publish over 50 books, and she has also written 6 books herself, and she has a book coming up here in July. So with that said, I wanted to hand it over to you, Jenn, and thank you so much for your patience with me. I have a lot of questions. We spent a lot of time together on the phone. I am so grateful. So thank you for everything.
You are so welcome. I can think back to our first conversation that we had and just hearing what your idea was for your book and just knowing somewhere like deep within my being that we had to just birth this together. And so I'm so grateful to have been along this ride for you and so believe in this. And I'm just so excited that we're able to have this kind of conversation, which feels so intimate and private, with people that you were acknowledging and recognizing at the top of this call of, you know, friends and best friends and family members. And it's so, to me, it's one of the most rewarding parts of this process, because as you know, as the author, and as I know as the publisher, it is not always a very smooth path to get the book out and into the hands of those who need to hear your story. But to me, like, this is the time to celebrate and acknowledge all of that hard work that you put into this. And obviously, you know, in our contribution in helping and get this done. But I'm so happy to be here, and I'm very much looking forward to facilitating some Q&A with our audience today.
Cool, great. Thanks, Jenn. I'm going to go ahead and read a small part of the book. It's just a small, it's a chapter just to give folks a sense of what I've written. Yeah, so for that, I'm going to use my glasses to read. So Determined to be Dad, A Journey of Faith, Resilience, and Love. Chapter 10 is the ups and downs of adoption. After the long and grueling process of getting approved to be adoptive parents, we were finally ready to meet birth parents. In April of 2010, we were finally live on the Independent Adoption Center website, and our profile was open to prospective birth parents. At that time, 2.5 years felt like the longest wait of our lives. That was how long we waited for our daughter. The National Adoption Center estimates the wait for a healthy baby is typically between 2 and 7 years. By those standards, 2.5 years seems like a flash in the pan, but it's still a long time to put your life and dreams on hold. Those first 6 months of preparation felt like a mad dash to get everything turned in. Once everything was submitted and we were listed, we thought we'd be flooded with phone calls. We expected the phone to be ringing off the hook the moment we got the green light. We were constantly checking our phones and making sure our 800 number was working and transferring calls to our cell phones. And we didn't get so much as a crank call that first month. The Independent Adoption Center had tried to set the right expectation to help us prepare for the wait that would ensue. There were at least 200 families ahead of us at our agency alone, all vying for that one child. But their advice went in one ear and out the other. All we cared about was matching with the birth parents and holding our bundle of joy. We were ready to be fathers. We were ready for the bottle feeding. We were ready for the diaper changes. We were ready for the sleepless nights. We wanted our child, and we wanted it now. Our placement social worker, Annie, gave us a false sense of hope. In an off-the-cuff remark, she said something along the lines of, as a mixed race, gay professional couple, she thought our wait would be shorter. The official agency advice was an average of 18 months of waiting prior to finding our child. Annie explained that many birth mothers placing children for adoption preferred a 2-man household because the birth mothers did not feel like they were being replaced by another mother. She said a heterosexual couple made some birth mothers feel threatened. We thought there was finally an advantage to being gay. In the months and years that followed, we were contacted by 14 different women in varying stage of pregnancy. Most were legitimate, while others felt like they were running scams or that their stories just didn't ring true. Yet we took every phone call, email, and text that came through seriously, wondering if our future child and birth family were on the other side of the call. None of these contacts resulted in an actual live meeting. Our first call was nerve-wracking. We were so nervous when we saw a number come through that we didn't recognize. We played hot potato with the phone saying, "You take it. No, you take it. I don't know what to say." The independent adoption agency provided us with suggested questions and talking points to break the ice in these varied awkward conversations. We had those questions pinned above our desks and role-played how the call would go. Needless to say, all the preparation in the world never got us ready for that first call. We had dry periods where we were wondering if we'd ever be contacted again. There would be months where we wouldn't hear anything, and other months where we were juggling 2 birth mothers at once. During our adoption journey, we encountered many women and a couple of men with unique stories and reasons for considering adoption. While these women were all pregnant, which was their commonality, that is where it ended. Every story and situation was unique and very personal. During our journey and post-adoption, when we shared our adoption story with people, there was a common stereotype of birth mothers. Most people assumed the birth mothers were young and addicted to drugs and or alcohol, or didn't have the means to support these children. We had heard very hurtful things such as, "How could any mother give away her child?" These comments and conversations were full of judgment, animus, and disgust. There was a demonizing of and a lack of compassion for these women and some men who had to make incredibly difficult decisions. Unfortunately, much of this language and stereotypes are accepted as truths in our culture. These words and feelings also lacked empathy toward our plight to become parents. These people did not understand the gratitude we felt in our unique bond with these birth parents. I can say in no uncertain terms that I have the utmost respect, gratitude, and love for these birth parents. I think of them often, wonder how they are doing, and send them love and well wishes. In our home, we have the ritual of praying over meals, and we always pray for my children's birth parents. There isn't a day that doesn't go by when I don't thank them for the gift of my children. There isn't a day that doesn't go by when I don't thank God for the gift of being a parent. All right. I think we're getting started with questions.
We are, and I feel like I kind of want to go rogue for a second just because I was watching people's faces and reactions as you were talking. I don't know if anyone has any thought or feeling that they want to put in the chat window, but we can start doing our Q&A just because that was a very moving piece that you pulled out. So thank you for that. I can see some teary eyes among the crowd. So Steve, we have a kind of a number of questions that we want to address here. And I want to kind of start with if there are some lessons that you want to talk about as it relates to our current climate of fighting racism, hate, violence, kind of all of that, and how your book might tie into that, because obviously that's such a pivotal thing that's on many people's minds as we're sitting here right now.
Yeah, so I write about it in my book quite a bit. And I think, so I'll share with you, when I was in the 4th grade, I moved out of a pretty homogenous Catholic school into the public school. In the 5th grade, I was joined in the classroom with children that were very different from me. And that was the first time in my life that I had experienced that. And I grew up in a suburb of Chicago, Skokie, which at the time in the late 70s had a very large Jewish population. About 7 to 8% of the residents of Skokie were actually Holocaust survivors. And during that time, the Illinois Nazi Party made an attempt to march in Skokie to demonstrate, and under the Constitution, they had the right of freedom of speech. What I saw in my classroom was that my teacher, Miss Edwards was her name, her family had been murdered in the Holocaust, and she was so distraught, and she was so upset. And I had other classmates whose families had died in the Holocaust, and it was really a very big turning point in my life. I had never experienced hate or violence or demonizing of people for certain aspects of who they were. And I think at that point, deep down inside, I realized that I was different. I couldn't articulate my difference at the time, but deep down inside, I knew I was different, but I also had a great deal of compassion for these folks. And so that really, that incident helped me determine that I needed to speak up, that I needed and in some cases, it's caused me a lot of problems in my life to speak up and have a voice. And when I see things that I believe that aren't true or right, or they're not the way that they should be, racism, hatred, violence, all of things, that I need to stand out of my comfort zone and speak up. And so I would say that that lesson in the 5th grade has served me to come out for myself, but also to really be an ally to so many other communities that are fighting racism and hate and violence.
Such a great story. And what was the catalyst for knowing that you had to release your book into the world?
Yeah, so the catalyst was really that throughout our adoption journey, which lasted 7 years, that when I would tell people like little tidbits of what we were going through, people were like, wow, oh my God, I can't understand that. Or wow, that sounds really hard. Or I just heard a lot of people really listening, and also that I felt like I was only getting my story to a few people, the people I knew in my circle, right? And so the catalyst was that I wanted to help other people that want to create families through non-traditional ways. So LGBTQ people, but also heterosexual folks that have fertility issues, single people that want to create families. I really wanted to put out in the world the journey that I went through and share it so that others could learn from it and maybe avoid some of the pitfalls that I had along the way.
And we do have an audience question that I think is kind of a perfect segue, and asking about who do you think is going to benefit from your book, and who the target audience is.
Yeah, so the target audience for the book is LGBTQ millennials. There's about 3.7 million of them that are thinking about creating families. And that's my generation, because I'm a lot older than millennials. My generation, we're not thinking about creating families. It wasn't an option for us really until the last 10 to 15 years. So that's a huge number of people that I'm hoping to impact. I would say the other audiences that I'm trying to reach are parents of LGBTQ youth. I think that many parents and families, when their child comes out, they go through a mourning period where they feel there's a loss, that they won't have grandchildren and they won't have sort of the life that they had for themselves. And so it's really, I think it's a book that will give hope to parents of queer kids that they can have everything they want in their life. And so that's another audience that I'm really, and then, any heterosexual folks that are having fertility issues, trying to think about adoption versus surrogacy or how they might create their family, it would be I think it would really help them.
That's amazing. And so was this experience cathartic for you in sharing your message?
The writing of the book, was it cathartic?
Yeah.
The question. Yeah. So it was. I think I didn't realize, like, when you're going through things in life, you don't always realize how stressful they are. And I think I had all these like sort of flashbacks in my head of memories of like certain situations. And I think that sitting down and actually putting pen to paper helped me work through some of the trauma of those situations, the fear, the worry. And so it's been very helpful. And I think of it as a cleanse almost, of like flushing it out of my system of all the things that were really hard about it. So yeah, it's been super cathartic. I feel like it's like created a new place in my life now.
Yeah, from a place of healing, which is such an amazing thing. And this is another amazing segue to another question that came in. In putting pen to paper, what's the most challenging part of your story to write about? That's a deep question.
Putting pen to paper, what was the most challenging
part of your story to write?
You know what? It's a great question. So I think hopefully my niece is on today. My niece was one of the early readers, and the early 90s for me. I moved to California in 1990. I was at that time was bi. I wasn't really gay. I wasn't really sure who I was, and the early 90s was also when we were in the sort of the full-fledged of the AIDS epidemic. And it was really hard to come out at that time. It was very unsafe. There was a lot of fear in the world. And there was a lot of fear from heterosexuals to gay people. There was also a lot of fear amongst gay men around like who had HIV and AIDS and was it something you could get? And so I glossed over that in one of my earliest editions of writing, and one of my earliest drafts. I glossed over the 90s because there was a lot of difficult stuff during that time. There was a lot of dating that was unsuccessful. There was just a lot of things that weren't great. And so my niece was like, you kind of skipped over like 10 years. And she was like, you need to like write on that stuff too. So Claire, I hope you're there. Because she was like, yeah, you need to go in the weeds and like really share some of that stuff. And I did. So that was hard to write. It brought me back to some sad places. So.
And I feel like what you're talking about is just so common for those who are writing memoir, just because there's so much trauma most of the time that we're unearthing, which makes it challenging as an author to kind of work through that. So it's great to see the success on the other side of like, I was able to work through it. And now here's this thing of beauty for all of you to take in. And so what do you hope your readers are going to get out of reading your book, or what type of impact on their life are you hoping for? Kind of anything in that regard.
Yeah. So when I wrote the book, I wrote it from, part of it is an instructional piece. There's a part of like, in order to actually understand adoption, you have to give a fair amount of detail around like, what do you actually have to go through? So there's some instructional aspects of it. I think for me, the hope that I have is that many of the books that are currently out there around adoption, they provide the instructional aspect of it. My hope is that the emotional journey, that's the part that people will walk away with and be like, wow, now I know this, that it's not uncommon to have, 6 months of no one calling and feeling really shitty about it, right? Like, oh my God, what's wrong with us? Why aren't we being selected? And will this ever happen? I think those are the stories in the book that I'm really hoping that will help people who are in the midst of the journey when it's really feels like there's no hope, that it will give them hope.
Mm. And we have another question. I want to encourage those who, haven't asked a question. If you want to put it in the chat window, please, by all means, do so. But we have a question that came in, and Steve, it's up to you whether you answer it or not. But what factors went into deciding to adopt a second child and to go through foster care rather than an open adoption?
Yes, I think one of the biggest factors for adopting a second child was that Lorvik and I, neither one of us were adopted. We were born into the families that we grew up in. And I think that being adopted is really a unique life experience. And for a child to experience that on their own is, it's like we wanted Caitlin to have a sibling that also had the same experience. The other thing, and Kathy Roizen, who's on the phone right now, I write about you in the book, is that when we were deliberating over a second child, you said something to me like, does your family feel complete with the three of us? And it didn't. And we both, Lorvik and I both looked at each other, and we didn't feel like it was our family yet. It was like we were there on the road. So those were like sort of the two biggest things, is it felt like there was really someone missing. And we also wanted Caitlin to have someone to experience like childhood together with, and also to have someone to experience what it feels like to be adopted, because that's such a big part of identity.
Yeah, that's another good one. Any other questions coming in? I feel like I'm gonna kind of pivot with a different question right now, but please, please put some questions.
Rudy, do you want to open the line if folks want to just ask questions?
Yeah, by all means.
Can we unmute or no? Cool. If you want to go ahead and ask a question, I'm encourage you to do so. I know Jen has a lot of questions.
I could ask questions all day long. I don't want to derail us too far. If there's other like really,
I'd love it if anyone has, yeah.
Or if you're open to it, Steve. If anyone has any just kind of comments of what they felt or in the reading at the beginning, because I was watching your facial reactions. They were very powerful. So if anyone has any comments around that too, I feel like we're in a safe space for this. So there's a question in the chat now that says, have you shared any parts of the book with Caitlin or Matthew?
That's a good question. I haven't read it to them. They're very well aware that I've written it. Caitlin actually wanted to design the cover, and she was really excited about it. And when I started reading about book marketing, they said, the cover is the most important thing. So I was like, well, I wanted her to be engaged on it. I was also like, I wanted, to be really good. So we made a decision. We're going to try to write a kid's book where she's going to do all the illustrations.
That's such a cute way to bring them into the conversation. That
question, I would say the way I wrote the book. So one of my biggest concerns was that I would share information or details about their lives that would make them uncomfortable in the future when they were to read it. So when there were things in the book that were sensitive, I wrote it from the perspective of, would I tell them this myself? So everything that is written in the book is anything I will tell them. And we talk about their adoptions all the time. So I will tell them, because as they get older and it's age appropriate, we'll share further details about the adoptions for both of them. But there's nothing there that I won't share with them directly.
And one of my questions was going to be, if you have any advice for someone who just kind of feels like they have a story to share themselves, if there's any kind of starting point that you might advise them on based on your experience. And what you were just saying, I think is really powerful. Like, it's a good filter to run through of, is this something that I would say directly to this, to this person or to these people as you're deciding what to include or not to include? But I'm curious if there's any other kind of things, if someone's just watching you and they're so inspired by what you did, if there's any kind of starting place that you would advise them on.
I mean, the way that, I don't know what your writing process is, but you need to write when you're in a creative place, and you need to do it without any editing function on, because the editing and critical thinking of what makes a good book, you can't do that when you're trying to put pen to paper. So I actually started writing. The first chapter I couldn't write, so I actually did audio with Word. Word has the audio function, because I was so self-critical about my writing skills and my ability to write that I just spoke about the events that were important to me, and I just spoke into the computer, and literally it just started doing the transcripting of what I was saying. And then once I got started, then I was able to start, typing and writing like that. But it took me a period of time. But what I found is that I didn't edit anything, and I just wrote. And I usually listen to piano music, and it got me sort of in a very creative place that I could just get stuff out.
That's awesome. There's another question. Oh wait, there's some feedback happening. All right, I think it's gone. So there's another question pivoting back into the parenting side, asking, can you talk about how therapeutic parenting has been for you?
I would say it's, I write a little bit about this. When I touch my kids' hands, I feel, like when they lift up and hold my hand, I feel joy that I never felt before. So I would say it's very therapeutic. It's opened my heart in ways that I didn't know I could. It's made me much stronger, and it's made me much more compassionate and selfless, I would say. So it's been very therapeutic. I think we as gay men, I can't speak for others in the LGBTQ community, but we grow up with a lot of distrust, because in many cases we grow up in hiding. We are trying to fit in, and so we grow up with a lot of mistrust. And you can't be in relationship with a child with mistrust, so it takes you out of mistrust. We get in this place of being sort of defensive, of like self-protection, because the world, there's a lot of hate in the world, and there's a lot of especially boy on boy, like, don't be a fag, don't be a sissy, don't be all this stuff. And so you kind of create a wall. And so I think for me, having kids now is like, my wall is completely gone.
Yeah. And so we're getting some really good questions in here. One's asking, do you have any comments or suggestions for daycare and school staff regarding families with same-sex parents? That's a great
I have a huge amount of advice. I actually did a full podcast on this. I'm happy to share that with anyone. The advice that I have is that you need to ask your school administrators to, so generally the way I do it is I start with the teacher and then go up and up, because what you want to do in the schools is you want to change it for the entire population, just not the classroom that your child in, because your child eventually will move to another classroom. And so, but out of courtesy to the teacher, I generally start with the teacher, and then I go to the principal, and then I go to the superintendent. And it's really about creating inclusiveness, and it's about creating policies and programs that are inclusive. And one of the biggest ways you can do that as a parent is to ask the school to buy LGBTQ books that have representation of same-sex parents. I would say this is also in our work to end racism, is if you're in a white school, you ask the administrators to buy books about communities of colors, African Americans, that they have that children see people other than themselves when they're learning to read, and that they understand stories and have visuals of people that are different than themselves. So those are critical. And like PTAs, like, you know, they're always asking for donations. We donate every year, and then we give them a list of books they need to buy for the library, like 20 LGBTQ books that they need to buy for the library. And it's really so that other kids can read about the families. The other thing that we do at school is that for most elementary schools have family week or a family of the week, and it rotates. So each kid is sort of the focus on those weeks. I'll go into the classroom and they usually have like a reading hour, and I'll bring in, or if they've already bought the books, I'll bring in books, or they'll use their books, and we'll read about a same-sex family in order to get the kids. So then my kid isn't focused. It's not focused on my child. It's focused on sort of like, then the teacher's there to help reinforce the message around families. That's a really important point, is to have the teacher be the one to tell the kids, because that takes the pressure off the child. But it also, the teacher has so much authority in the classroom that the kids will be like, oh, okay, it's normal. If Miss Mary says blah, 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 then it's normal. We believe everything she says, right? So that's what you need to do.
I want to be respectful of our time on the agenda, but we do have a couple of other questions. One of which is, how did you find the time to write while caring for 2 children, and did you keep a schedule?
How I found the time to write is I was laid off, and I had a severance, and was grateful to have time to write. And so generally what I would do is take my kids to school, or take our kids to school in the morning, and then I would go to Starbucks and order a coffee and sit for about 3 hours, and I would write with my headphones on and music. And that was sort of the pattern that I followed for a very long time.
So 2 other questions. One being, how long did it take you to finish this project?
It took about 18 months. Yeah, about 18 to 24 months.
From the start of the writing to it being in your hands now?
Yeah. To being on Amazon now.
Yes. And then I guess maybe the last question, in respect for your agenda and the timing, is, and this is maybe a more intricate question, but how did you feel that you could not come out in the area that you grew up in? That's a good question.
This is a good question. I wasn't out to myself. I think for parents out there that have young children, the culture is so heteronormative that you don't even know that it's a possibility that you could, you know, that you're like, I never thought it was possible. I didn't know. There were no images. There was nothing for me to believe. So I didn't really even actually know until I was close to 20 years old. So I couldn't come. I didn't think it was an option. I never even crossed my mind for most. I would guess, and I write about this, was sort of like sexually repressed. I didn't really explore any of. When all of my friends were exploring in high school, I was like head down, you know, just like gymnastics and, you know, all the student council, and just keeping myself busy. I was running in many ways away from it.
And Steve, you can go through the chat after this and kind of see all the praise and comments and congratulations, and I'm so proud of you messages that are coming in, which is, I think, a sentiment that many people, if not everyone on this call, would say to you, that, you know, everyone is just so proud of you being able to get this done and get to the finish line. And in so many ways, like, yes, while today might be a finish line because it's here, you're holding it in your hand, everyone can now go buy it. It's also, I think, just the kind of the starting point of so much amazingness that's yet to come. And that's what I'm most excited about for you.
Yep. Cool. Good.
Yeah, I think that's all our questions.
Do we want to open the line just for a second? Does anyone want to say, I know I always feel like it's nice to hear folks' voice. Paperback's out. The paperback is out. So the hard copy is it's interesting with COVID. For some reason, hard copies are taking longer to print. Some of the publishing houses are like, I don't know what the reason, but paperback is readily available. Hard copies are taking, but Amazon takes, because of COVID, they're actually not warehousing things as much as they normally did. They made a lot of room for toilet paper and hand sanitizer and all of these other things. So be patient with your order. The books are not being delivered as quickly as I had hoped. So that's what I would say about that. It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, as well as IndieBound. And then I'm also signing copies that can be purchased off my website. I will send a signed copy. I am still waiting for hardbacks, but paperbacks, I have plenty of those. So yeah. Cool. Anything else?
Steve, it's been nice reconnecting with you, and I hope it continues because I need a lot of your knowledge with my job as a teacher and how our environment is changing.
Yeah, I would love to connect. Yeah, absolutely.
Congratulations, Steve. Great job. Love the book. So proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic, Steve. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate in your call. This is
Thank
awesome.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Sam, Mayumi, Rich. So many people. So happy you're on. Iris, David, my sister, Julie, Anna, Tiana, how are you? Sabrina, how are you? Thank you, Kathy, Ruth. Bye. Georgia, bye. Chris, thank you. Bye, Tom, thank you. Mercy, Bob, Sean, thank you all.
Yeah, honey. I don't know if he heard you.